3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome into PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. And with me as my partner on these Monday night soirees into the world of baseball is Ross Grimsley. Ross, how are you?
Stan, doing good, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. And our guest, as you can see, is a familiar face to Baltimore, and we're going to talk to him in about 20 seconds. First, I have to tell everybody that baseball betting is here. That's right. Bet $5 with DraftKings and get $150 in instant bonus bets along with other great incentives and promos when you sign up at PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Baseball future bets, season specials, and player award bets are already live in Maryland. Go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers now for your shot at winning big. And speaking of winning big, whenever we can sit with the Demper and talk baseball, it's always a big win for all of us and all of you out in the viewing audience. Rick, first of all, how you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. I just made a little trip to the hospital to pass some kidney stones for the third time. And boy, oh boy, I tell you what, I would stand in front of Bo Jackson every night rather than go through that.
I'm sure he would rather do that, rather bang you over than suffer kidney stones too, Rick. Hey, Rick, before we get into talking baseball, the Orioles announced the other night that Dempsey's, Dempsey's restaurant, which has been a staple out there for a long time, is not going to be part of the Orioles features out at Camden Yards anymore. You okay with that?
Well, I'm pretty disappointed because I had such a great time with Oriole fans after the game, stopping by there almost every night, and talking baseball with everybody. My family was not with me for the last couple of years there. My kids have grown up, and my wife is out in California, half the time. So, it is disappointing because it was just, and time moves on. I understand that.
Yeah.
But I still had a great time with Oriole fans there. You get to meet a lot of people that you've never met that have been part of Oriole baseball from back in the Memorial Stadium days. So that's all I meant. I'm not disappointed in a respect because I had heard for the last couple of years that they were going to change something about the restaurant. I think last year they were a place where people could go get COVID-19 shots and things like that. So, that's the only thing that I meant by, being disappointed at all, because I was already informed a couple of years ago, but I have not heard from Oriole upper office people for a long time. So, I wasn't meant to, the remark wasn't meant to, point a finger at them at all. It was just to say, that I knew, but I didn't know as of this week, that they were going to make the change.
Rick, other big changes in the game of baseball that I want to get your thoughts on right now. The bases being larger. It literally is making it shorter distance between bases by about 3 or 4 inches or a foot, maybe. This is kind of a big deal, isn't it?
Well, it is in some respects. I think it's going to be a little bit more dangerous from my perspective. Guys were always rounding the bags, and they're always, the guys that aren't looking at the third base coach are looking at the ball and not the base. And if it's going to be a little bit bigger, you're probably going to have a few more sprained ankles as you're rounding the bags. And so
interesting.
That's going to be that's going to cost a lot of teams, I think, in that respect. But outside of that, it's one of the lesser rules that they've changed as of late.
One pitcher, before I turn you over to Ross, one pitcher has come out, Max Scherzer, who is one of the more cerebral, smart pitchers in baseball. He says he's going to use this thing to his advantage because the batter has to step into the box and be ready with 8 seconds to go on the 20-second clock. he says he's going to be prepared to quick pitch them. And then once he gets that in their head, then he's going to slow down and use the 8 seconds and wait until the last second and slow ball them so they sort of control the tempo. Do you think that's possible that pitchers can do that, Rick?
Well, yeah, I guess they can. I mean, Scherzer's been around a while longer. He pitches deeper into ball games along with Verlander than most pitchers do. They're going to find ways to take advantage of the rules. They're smart guys.
Yeah.
And that's why they're going to do that. It's going to cause a lot of trouble. There's no doubt about that. When all of a sudden a guy gets called out with the bases loaded in the ninth inning, and we saw that already in the spring training game. But it's just one of those kind of rules. I don't think it could have been. Or it should have been one of the big rules to have been changed. I've said for years, and I know that I've leaked it to the commissioner of baseball, that the best way to speed up the game is to move the catcher closer to home plate, because now they sit so far back that by the time they catch a pitch that moves a little bit or exactly on the quarter, by the time it hits the catcher's mitt, it is way out of the strike zone.
Mhm.
Now catchers are sitting back 2 and 3 feet farther than they used to, because the backswing of the hitter now is in front of the catcher instead of behind the catcher. And it's going to have an effect on, let's say, a 200 pitch game. You're going to lose 15% of your strikes on the corners or for the entire game, actually, because a lot of pitchers, they're no different than the guys I had. They throw the ball over the plate at the major league level for the most part, and they're just not getting the pitches called strikes on the corners, and therefore they're out of the ball games by the 4th and 5th innings with the 100 pitch limit. And then to come in and change 3 pitchers on both sides of the field, that's 6 extra pitchers when you probably should be able to get through by 2 or 3 at the most. And it's just going to cost you another 45 minutes in the game. So
Ross, go ahead. I know you're
Yeah.
dying to talk to Demper.
No, I
about
got,
some of this.
there's so many questions, but one of the things, Dipper, you went from the field, you went to the booth. You worked at Masson for since 2007, I think, 2007 or 8, something like that.
15 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what are you doing now? I know that this was the first year, I believe, that you didn't do a whole lot. What are you doing now? What do you got your hands into?
Well,
what's keeping you busy?
I really miss broadcasting, for Masson. I know at first, the first couple of years, I was awful. I was just terrible. But, after I picked up the rhythm,
Tom Davis taught you how to do it right.
Yeah, Tom was pretty good at helping me to find the rhythm and the timing. And then I didn't get so tongue-tied, that sort of thing. But you got to learn somehow. I was a rookie again at that. But yeah. So anyway, it just came a time too where the Orioles were forced to make some changes, and I happened to be one of those. Another thing that I miss very much. But aside of that, I am with a group of guys now, Steve Stone and a friend of his called Lou Weisbach, and he's come up with a program. And I've actually come up with a couple of friends that have a lot of money for investing in those kind of things to try to help the Oakland A's move from Oakland to Las Vegas, and any other teams that want to make moves or renovations with stadiums. I've got some really good guys and some good companies behind me that are willing to put the money up to help Major League Baseball and these teams to do a lot of things now. We've also got, trying to mix in with Roger Goodell is called, and wants to do some football stadiums and professional basketball, so Madison Square Garden, we might be doing some work for them. So, if we can crack that egg and get into that business, it'll get me back closer to sports again. That's where I want to be.
You want to get back into baseball? You want to get back into the booth or on the field? I know you managed AAA with the Dodgers, and I think Albuquerque, if I'm not mistaken. And you seem to enjoy that. Just what little I talked to you about it, it was interesting. I know you wanted to manage the Orioles at one point.
Yeah, at one point, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and rightfully so. Why not? But
Well,
Well, what
I
are you
haven't-
looking to get back in the booth or on the field? Do you think that is a possibility?
I think getting back into the booth would probably be the best thing, being down on the field. I always wanted to manage that. That was my goal when I got through playing. But now, I'm 73 years old and my wife and I are empty nesters, and, I just got to keep an eye on her. I've spent almost my whole life on the road. I got married when I had just turned 19 to the same girl, Joni, her.
Mm.
And now, I just, I don't want to be away that long in case something happens, and she really needs me. So, but I would like to be on an advisory board of some sort. If it isn't going to be with the Orioles, then I would like it to be with the Dodgers. They're a great organization also, and
you
just
live
hoping
out
to
there,
be
and
able
you
to
live out there.
contribute
Right.
some of the things that I've learned about Major League Baseball through the years.
And Demper, you live out. How far are you from Dodger Stadium?
I'm 35 minutes with no traffic, 3.5 hours with traffic.
With traffic.
Boy, you could take a ride to Dodger Stadium and a ride home. And what you were worried about with your wife being alone, it would be like a road trip or something like that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean,
Hey, Deborah, let me ask you a little bit about, the catching situation now as far as catchers catching on one knee. The pitchers can only throw over to first base a couple times, and the third time, if they don't get them, it's a balk. Framing is something that they're really, going crazy about. What are your thoughts about all of that? Especially, the one knee holding runners, calling a game. They got the wristband on, and God knows what's on that.
Well,
give me your thoughts on that.
I think the defensive catcher is a thing of the past. At least that's the way it's moved in that direction. It's become an offensive position. Of course, I get to see more Dodger games than Oriole games, but I think the Dodgers have two of the better catchers in all of Major League Baseball. But from a pitcher's perspective, Ross, when you come into a ball game, you did a lot of relief pitching for a while too. When you come into a ball game and a catcher misses a ball that he should have blocked or he should have caught, I mean, it puts a lot of pressure on you. Now you got runners in scoring position if they haven't scored already, or they're at third base with less than 2 outs. And I watch a ton of playoff games and World Series games at the end of the baseball season, and I see so many games that are determined by 1 and 2 runs. And those 1 and 2 runs ended up scoring because the catcher didn't catch a ball because he went to one knee. You give a huge advantage to the base runner in those circumstances. And, I would have never played in the big leagues if I couldn't stop the running game, or if I was missing balls behind home plate. Earl Weaver never would have kept me on that ball club. And so the pitching and defense takes you to those championships, and the catchers nowadays are giving up way too much by going to one knee in two strike situations, and situations where you're giving the advantage to good base runners and putting a lot of pressure on that pitching staff. And that.
Yeah, that if a guy goes to one knee and he's not good at blocking the ball, most pitchers are reluctant to throw the ball and bounce it, or you don't want to do it because no one's going to block it. So you're very hesitant to do it. You end up hanging pitches. It's really a deterrent to pitchers having confidence in the catcher. I mean, if you got a guy that can block the ball, you're going to throw the ball in the dirt to get them to chase pitches, and that's.
I'll tell you a good story, Ross, and I know you know Steve Stone.
Yes.
Steve came to the Baltimore Orioles in a trade, and he had never won more than 12 ball games in his life, and he's in a really tough ball game in his first outing. He's got a 1-run lead, men on second and third, ninth inning, a right-hand hitter up, 2 strikes and no balls on the hitter, and I call for a curveball in the dirt, and he stepped off and he motions me out. He goes, "I'm not throwing a curveball in the dirt and giving him that run at third base and then have the winning run out there with less than 2 outs." I said, "Listen, Steve, you don't throw that good to get the ball by me, okay? You got good stuff, I get that. But if I know for sure, if I know you're going to throw a curveball in the dirt, it will never, ever get by me." He throws the curveball in the dirt. The guy swings at it. I block it. I throw the ball back to him. He gets the pop up on the third out. He went on to win 25 ball games. Now I have to go back in time to see, but I don't even think Jim Palmer won 25 in any
He's the only
particular
Oriole
game.
to win 25. He's the
Yeah.
only Oriole.
So, I mean, it's just the way pitchers still have to learn how to pitch out of the strike zone when they're way up in the count. When you're up 2 strikes and no balls and you give up a base hit, Earl Weaver used to fine us. Remember that, Ross?
Oh,
Earl would
God,
fine
yes.
us for giving up
Well,
a
he'd
base
yell
hit.
he'd yell at you, the catchers. He wouldn't yell at us.
Well, I know you guys were related to him in some way. I always took the blame.
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
Yeah, really.
hey, Demper, I want to talk about one of the aspects of these rule changes is now you got a base runner. Let's say Jorge Mateo is on first base
Oh,
or
yeah.
Cedric
Very good.
Mullins, and you can only throw over 2 times. So now I've thrown over 2 times. If I don't throw him out on the third time, I think it's a balk plus a strike. I mean a ball. So are we going to see the comeback of the pitch out? Something we don't see that much of now. Is that going to become part of the strategy?
Well, you make a very good point because I hadn't thought about it that much at this point. But yeah, the pitch out has got to be. I can't even remember the last time I saw a pitch out.
It
No.
died
Been
with
so
the
many
bunt.
years.
It died with the bunt about 20 years
Yeah.
ago.
And they hadn't run, no doubt.
But
No,
seriously, you think we'll see a lot more pitching out once a guy is exhausted his couple throws over there?
I think that's a rule that'll probably be banned after a while. And they're going to change that back because it just puts too much pressure. As long as the game is going, is moving along quickly, then to throw over. I don't see pitchers that throw over more than 2 times anyway
Right.
in any particular
Yeah,
at bat.
Yeah,
I haven't
nobody
seen
was
that.
running.
Was that?
I said no one was running
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
the last several years.
That's one of those rules. I think after a while they're going to say, "Oh, okay, we don't need that anymore." Because once you throw over twice, then you give a huge advantage to the running game.
I
So
want to return to ask you a question about what you were talking about before with Ross, where you said that the catchers are so much further back, and you
Yeah.
said the backswing now comes in front of you where it used to go behind you. How many
Yes.
times were you hit in your career by the backswing?
very few times. Every
Okay.
now and then I get maybe once a month I get a little ding on the elbow on a backswing, or if a guy threw the bat, he might catch me off the shin guard or something. But nothing that ever hurt me or put
So
me.
why do you think catchers, more modern day catchers, started getting back? Was it for fear of that happening?
I don't know who the guy is that changed all that. I don't know if it was the Molinas or whatever it was,
Right.
but they go to one knee quite often so they can give a lower target. Work
Right.
on your flexibility. I'm 73 right now. I can still give a target on the ground. I mean,
Yeah.
that should not be a factor. And then slapping at the ball when the ball's in the dirt and the guys, 90% of the time they get the extra base anyway. So, but no, I don't like to see that because it takes a lot of the precision out of the ball game. And, that's another thing that bothers me, Ross. When you work with a catcher that you really like, you know how precise you can be. When he gives you the kind of target you want, whether it be, low in the strike zone so that you catch the bottom of the strike zone or whatever. Those are the kind of things that the catchers have to work out one-on-one with every single pitcher. Major League Baseball the teams sign these guys to come out and do all the grunt work, I call it, warming up all the guys.
Right.
That's not a lot of fun, especially in Baltimore when it's hot and hot. But you got to have a very precise relationship with all your starting pitchers and even the guys in the bullpen. And when they're struggling, you got to go out there in the bullpen and work a lot more with these guys. But when I give you a target, you're used to seeing, exactly where I want your curveball, your spitter, Ross,
Who threw that?
whatever, wherever it was moving. if it had a 1 or 2 baseball move, which is about that much, then I had to give the target a little bit lower for you so that where the ball went through the strike zone might have been right where you want. By the time it gets to my glove, it's a little bit out of the strike zone. Those are the kind of things that you got to work on. The precision. It isn't pitching, it is precision. I got to know exactly the rhythm and timing, when you want to see your target, how you want to see your target, and I'm not giving those base runners or anybody an opportunity to get on base by missing balls behind home plate, because it is tough enough as it is just to get through a ball game on your own.
Ross, go ahead.
Yeah, Denver, you watched many of the Oriole games the past year or two, or actually the last year.
I get I get half of them at least. Yeah.
Yeah, the bullpen was really outstanding.
Yes, they were.
They struggled a little bit. They didn't really struggle, but their ERA was in August and September. It was 3.71, 4.80. They were exhausted, I think. And starters went 5 innings. They were at the bottom of baseball in starters going. They got a couple guys in Gibson and Irwin that average over 5 innings. I think Irwin averages almost 6 innings. With these guys, and obviously maybe the other starters going deeper in the games, there's I think 3 or 4 pitchers, bullpen guys that are got minor aches and pains or whatever, some injuries, and I think they got really wore out toward the end of the year, and it showed up. You think with these two, Gibson and Irwin, giving you more innings for the starter, that this bullpen will be a little rested, and hopefully if the guys recover 100%, they'll be even the same as they were last year.
There's no doubt that the more a pitcher stays in a ball game, the better he makes it for everybody. This is why they're still paying Verlander and Scherzer so much money, because those guys, even though they're older starters, they last in ball games. They know how to change speeds. They know how to put a little on, take a little off, and they do a different kind of exercise. Now, I'm not criticizing the players of today, the pitchers of today, but I mean, when you came into professional baseball, even though you were a bullpen guy, you still did a huge amount of running in the wintertime. It wasn't take a month off for fishing, hunting, golfing, and fooling around. You were constantly throwing and working out all the way, and you ran a lot. Baseball is an endurance sport. When you stop and think about from the start of spring training to the end of a championship season, you might play 220 ball games. You have to be prepared for a huge amount of games, especially in a city like Baltimore that goes from really cold early on to very hot and humid for most of the summer. And it's just very, very tough. So the conditioning I've heard from talking with a lot of players since I've been retired is they don't want you to run as much. And I don't get that.
It makes no sense. Makes
I
no sense.
never understood that.
Because I've talked to a ton of doctors too about it. And I said, how come I never got hurt? I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I was on the disabled list 2 times, both with broken bones, Don Gullett and Bo Jackson. Outside of that, never had a pulled muscle. I had sore arms and stuff like that, like everybody, but nothing that ever took me out of a ball game. So I asked the doctor, I said, does oxygen heal your body? And they said, you know something? You've got a good point there, because I ran 28 miles a week, every week. From day one, I'm home after the season's over with. For 35 years, I ran that same routine on 7.5 miles Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then Tuesday, it was repeat quarters, which is kind of in times in a minute and a half. I ran 4 miles, 16. And then on Thursday, I'd do the sprint workout. And I always varied all the things I did, but I put a lot of time running. And that's why I never got hurt. I never got real big as a catcher. I think I caught the most at 181 pounds. But, but
I always heard, Demper, I always heard this about you. May not have looked that strong, but I've talked to a couple people in baseball that said that the only handshake that was harder was Richie Allen.
Oh,
Allen.
God.
Woo, oh yeah. Whoa.
But
Yeah,
you
the way
had
he used to
you
put-
had an amazing grip when you gripped somebody.
Well, yeah, you know something. I wanted to play every day. Earl Weaver would never let me do that, especially as a catcher. I got up to 135 games a season for a while there. But you were never going to have me out of a ball game for any kind of a muscle strain or a muscle pull, all that kind of stuff. You know, I was always prepared. I was very flexible and I was very durable. And that is the key to Major League Baseball. It is not like basketball, a game every other day or one every 3 days. It's not like football once a week or soccer. What's soccer once a week or twice a week maybe? No, baseball is a tough sport, and you've got to be prepared physically for it, or you're giving away a lot of time. And owners and general managers should realize how much running players should do and get them back, you know, in the kind of condition they should be in for a full season, 162 games, and then the other 60.
Denver, they'll get tired. They'll get tired if they run.
But how I've seen you guys, sure you get a little tired, but I've seen guys go out there in the 6th, 7th, and 8th inning that were sweating the heck out of it, and then you know, and they got better as the game went on. They
You ever
changed
see
speeds
you,
better.
you ever see anybody sweat as much as Dylan Bundy on a Baltimore night, on a
Oh,
hot
but
Baltimore night?
yeah, I have seen one guy that said, but
Who was
oh, Ross, he had a brother. He was about 6'4", 6'5" with the Yankees. This guy poured sweat when he pitched. I want to say Henry, but I can't remember if that was his last name or not.
it? All
But
right.
I'd never seen anybody pitch for Cleveland for a long time, and he was huge. But man, when he started sweating, you just poured like
Was it
glass of
Bibby?
water.
Was it Bibby?
Was it
Bibby,
Jim,
yes,
Jim
thank you.
Bibby.
Jim Bibby.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Oh, he did.
His brother was Henry Bibby.
He
Henry,
did.
Jim
that's
Bibby.
where it was.
It
Yeah.
was Jim Bibby.
He was a
I-
sweating guy.
I never
Oh
saw
my God! I
I
never,
never
seen
saw
anything like
anybody
it.
I never saw anybody sweat more than Bundy though on a hot summer night. Ross, you got one more, or because I want to
You
close
know,
with
I want
one.
to ask one thing. I'm not sure if Denver, we had a lady on, an astrophysicist on here, Dr. Meredith Wills, and she did things with the baseball. She would dissect them, and they used 3 baseballs last year, and they used one that was live, one that wasn't live, and one that she called a Goldilocks ball. Have you heard anything about that? It came out during the winter meetings that they used 3 different baseballs.
Well, I heard that after the season was over. Yeah, I did. I didn't hear it during the season, but my God, I mean, you really want to mess up a pitcher's rhythm out on the mound. I mean, so go with baseballs out there that are a little bit heavier and a little bit lighter and a little bit slipperier and whatever, you
Right.
know. You can't do that. Pick a ball and let's go get them and quit worrying about that kind of stuff.
All right. Hey, Demper, before we leave, I was listening to you a moment ago, a few minutes back, talk about the precision that a pitcher and a catcher can have together. And it got me to thinking about my age-old question, and I know Grimsley's against it, and I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure you're against it, but I don't understand. It seems contradictory when you talk about the precision. Is the electronic eye umpire behind home plate calling balls and strikes? You're against that, aren't you?
I am against it. Yeah. I don't.
Why?
Human error's
Why
always
shouldn't
been
a
part of it.
Why shouldn't a pitcher and catcher know what's going to be a strike on any given night? It changes when Jim Honachek and Al Clark and Emmett Ashford, they all have different strike zones.
Yeah, they did. I mean, the National League was notorious for having a much lower strike zone than the American League. And that's okay. You know, once you've been around Major League Baseball for a long time, you realize, all right, you better go up there and be ready to swing the bat. That was all part of the game. Human error has never been a big thing. But next thing, you're going to turn it into a video game for a while if you've got a machine back there calling balls and strikes. I mean, I like the fact that I know that I argued and fought with him. Most of it was Earl Weaver telling me what to go and say to the umpires, but some of them have great characters. Most of them are really good guys. And, they should
And
stay in
nobody's
the
saying,
game. That's their
Demper,
point.
nobody's saying that they won't have a job. You still need a home plate umpire to call balks and plays at the plate and run down the line and call the sacrifice fly and all that stuff. But all right, I can't get you guys to win. Dave Johnson's the only one that agrees with me.
No,
Hey, Dep-
I don't agree. I don't agree with that. I mean, it is what it is, and you just got to go with it, Stan. Come on.
All right. Hey, Demper, we really appreciate your joining us tonight, and get over these kidney stones, and we'll talk to you.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you once the season opens up. All right.
All right, sir. You take
Thanks,
care,
buddy.
Ross.
All
Thank
right.
you
Tell
very
Johnny,
much.
hey,
All right. We
Stan,
love you,
say
Rick. We love you, and
Okay,
Baltimore loves you. All right.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
All right. Hey, I got to tell you about the Costas Inn. The Costas Inn, located at 4100 North Point Boulevard, is my favorite restaurant in town. They've been sponsors of my program since 1995 on the radio. So they've been with me a long time. They've been open, Ross, 50 plus years over there at the same location on North Point Boulevard. If you love steamed crabs with the crab season, I mean, all year long is the crab season now.
crab
summer
cakes
coming-
are great too.
They are
The
great.
crab
there.
cakes are fantastic.
And their crab soup is fantastic. But seriously, this time of year, the weather warms up in the next month. You start to think of having crabs in the summer. No place better than the Costas Inn. And if you are at all concerned about going in restaurants, they understand that. That's why they've stepped up their curbside pickup, or as we old timers used to call it, takeout. But seriously, you can go on their website, Costas Inn, COSTAS INN, CostasInn.com. You can order online, pay online, and then you can pick up your food. You don't even have to get out of your car. All right. Tell them that Stan the Fan and Mr. Grimsley sent you. Ross,
Yes,
we've got one more show next week before I go down to Florida.
Exactly,
So
right.
We'll figure out somebody. I'm thinking if you might want to call Mr. Devereaux, because I think he's finished up his week
Yeah.
down there. Is that a good idea for next
Yeah, we
week?
can do that. Absolutely. He'd be
All
more
right.
than happy to do that.
All right. Hey, this week on the other show that we do, this week we've got the new head coach. Do you remember his dad, Don Shinnick, who played for the Colts?
Yes.
All right. His son, Pete, who's had a long coaching career at a lower level, is now the head coach at Towson University. He
Oh,
joins
really?
Gary Stein and I this Thursday, and we'll talk to him a little bit about his life in football and his remembrances of his dad, Don Shinnick. All right. For now, the Costas Inn has brought you this program. And we also urge you to go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers to sign up for the new DraftKings entry offer. If you bet $5, you can win $150 just by signing up with their instant bonus bet. All right, that does it for us tonight. For Rick Dempsey, Ross Grimsley, I'm Stan the Fan, and we'll see you down the road a little bit.